all about it. Well, I definitely want to hear all about it.
So
about
the
it. Okay.
DM7 is pretty powerful little package. Too bad it has only 24 faders. That's all I got to say.
Which I will agree 100% with that.
And it sounds like
It's really, but it's well, it sounds good, but it's really. There's David. Hey, you made it.
Yeah, great. Made it.
It's quite fast to respond. So if you did have to, I don't know about crossfading, like you said, crossfading from one source to another might be tricky. But if you had to go from layer to layer, it's really fast to do that.
Is it pretty quick?
Yeah. Very fast, yeah.
And the only thing that when I first looked at it, I was so bummed when the TF came out and they didn't stick with the architecture, the CL architecture, because they spent all that money and time developing something that was so good. And then they just made this thing that looks like a Mattel toy for the TF. So I was hoping with the DMs they were going to stick with the CL, but
it's more like a small Rivage is what it is.
Yeah, I just think it's
not like a TF at all. It's not like the TF at all.
It's not okay.
No.
I saw
TF
it from a distance.
TF stands for toy factory, right?
Toy factory, yeah.
It's like TF is a toy, but that DM is not a toy. That is definitely, it's like a mini Mirage, mini Rivage. I'm sorry.
And also the
so
insert
you can't really
points.
see it. It's not really there. Yeah. Is that what you're saying? You could just...
The Rivage is the console that you imagine you see after you're in the desert.
It's got so many of the same features as the Rivage, from what I understand. I haven't used the Rivage enough to know, but I'm hearing that it's very similar to the Rivage.
So, Kenny, is it limited in channel inserts like the CL is?
Well, that's a good question. I doubt it because it has 144 channels of Dante in and out. So I don't think it has that limitation at all. It has so much going on. 120 channels on the surface, right?
Yeah,
120 channels, 48 mixed buses plus 12 matrices,
right.
plus 24 DCAs.
So right? you know the insert or the insert issue on the CL.
I know
right?
what you're talking about. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. You know what? I didn't even think about that. So I don't think that exists.
Yeah.
It's a good question, though.
And the Rivages have 3 inserts per channel, and I don't know if the DM does or not.
4 per channel.
Really?
Yes,
well, then
4 per channel.
It must not have any issues with that then.
Yeah, right. I'm telling you.
Are you sure you're retired? Bruce,
holy shit!
Are you sure you're retired? Because it doesn't sound to me like you're retired.
Cool? I mean,
so dude, so the thing about being retired is being retired is still doing what you love, but doing it when you want to because you love to, not because you have to on someone else's terms.
I look forward to that. I hope to get there in about 3 years. About 3 years, I think I'll be there.
How old are you?
Well, if that's the case,
I'm
I think
younger than you.
Vouch for me that I'm retired. Yeah. If based on your definition, I'm retired.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, because I'm 67 and but I'll be 68 next week.
I'm 68, so I'll be 69.
I'll catch up to you. I'll catch up to you in a week.
Okay. I always used to tell my little brothers, there's a whole lot of things that you might be able to do better than me, but you'll never catch up to me. I'll always be older than you. And
right.
boy, I'll tell you, it hurts now. It's 6 years younger than me.
Yeah.
No, the interesting thing is a kid, you never, ever, all you want to do is grow up. All you want to do is grow up. You just want to be older, and then you get to be older and you just want to be younger. Oh, I just want to be younger.
I don't plan to retire. I'm retired from the first time.
Bruce, are you collecting Social Security?
Yeah, January 1st, I collected Social Security, and that basically makes up for all the shows that I'm not doing.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till I'm 70, though. I think so. I get the full thing.
One of the deals was I was going to wait till I was 72, and then my wife was like saying, "You should check it. You
can't wait till you're 72, Bruce. You have to do it at 70.
No. I mean,
70 also.
Yeah. So when I logged in and checked it, it was more than what I thought it was going to be, even at 70. So she said, you just need to do this now and forget this slaving over this, And I said,
I'm sorry that you did this, but it might not be too late. When did you start collecting?
Last year, beginning of January 1st.
Oh, then there's
so
nothing
like
a year and
a few days ago.
Right. I think I applied the middle of January and I made it retroactive to the 1st.
Very, very good.
Listen to here.
Excellent.
Jan has some advice. Jan has some advice about when you
Yes,
start,
but
first
before
start
I
collecting.
give you the advice, let me introduce everybody to what we're doing. You came in the middle, so just remember, if you want to become, part of the active panel and hear all the good gossip that's going on, all the good shit that's happening before you get here and see us live.
And it's good shit too.
Oh man, really good shit. This is good shit. And by the way, there's a great comedian. I love this guy. Of course, right now I got mental block on his name, but it'll come to me.
It was
but
Kim,
Emo
wasn't it?
from
I
Sweden.
just saw him on TV the other day. Yeah,
He's great. He's just funny.
Yeah.
Love it. I love it. He says the hardest word, the best word in the English language is shit because it has so many meanings. That's good shit. Oh, that's really good. But bad shit. Oh, No,
Okay.
It's actually ass. Ass. He also does it with ass. That's what ass is.
There's one other word too that we can't really say online.
Oh,
here,
Bruce, you froze up.
You could
on
say
us,
whatever
Bruce.
you want.
Wait, everybody froze up.
We're cable.
Well,
but before you do, this is Thinking Out Loud with Friends. Everything you hear today is an opinion, and this is our 190th meeting. So hey, we're back in business. So let's talk about Social Security for 1 second. Okay. So what I found out is if you wait till you're 70 years old to collect Social Security, you can call up, and Social Security, by the way, is amazing. The people that work for Social Security and Medicare are absolutely beyond the reproach in their ability to do their jobs.
I've been very impressed with both of them. Yes.
It's amazing. If all of the government divisions work like Medicare and Social Security, the country would be in a much better place.
They're not like the DMV.
No, not like the DMV at all, man. But anyway, so listen, so this is what I was told. So that a friend of mine called me up. He says, and I was telling him I was going to go on Social Security when I was 70. And he said to me, hey, when you talk to the woman, ask her what it would be if you went retro. And basically what that means is that you can if you wait till 70, you could go backwards 1 year and they will give you a full amount of money that you would have collected in 1 year with interest.
Well, that's cool.
If you take a lesser amount. And so when I talked to my accountant about this, it turned out that I'd have to be 86 years old before it would be in the negative. So
wow.
Remember those words, go retro.
That's pretty standard. That's pretty standard.
Maybe it is now, but not when I started collecting.
If you sit there and you figure at 7% a year times 4 years to go from 66 to 70, and put it in the spreadsheet, it shows up at about 85, 86 years old every time.
Wow.
Yep.
The point is they gave Jan a boatload of money when he started.
Yeah, boatload. Yeah, they gave me the difference was $100 a month in difference in collecting. And my accountant said to me, at 86, if $100 a month is going to make a difference in your life, it won't make a difference anyway, at that point. So
yeah, somebody shut their mic off that's having a conversation offline.
David, you got a bad habit of that. But actually, so you need to keep your mic off when you're not talking, please. All right. Unless your room is quiet. If your room is quiet, no big deal. Anyway, a lot to talk about. Let's continue where you were, Bruce, in regards to the
four
DM3
inserts per channel. The DM3 is the mini DM7, but it does it have Dugan? Does it have Dugan yet?
All right, so let me tell you about the DM3 so that anybody online who's experiencing this will know.
I'm going to interject a little bit. A DM3, it's a product made by Yamaha Professional Audio. And it is a mixing, for those people who are not an engineer or in our business, it's a mixing console. And the mixing console is what controls the audio that you hear in any event, whether it be a live rock concert or a corporate event, whatever. That's what a mixing board is. And now, Bruce, continue.
So, Jan, do you actually think the people that have signed on to listen to this don't know so little?
I don't know. I found out that we had like something like on LinkedIn alone, we had something like 177 imprints. I don't know what that means, but it seemed good to me. 300, I'm sorry, last week we had 388 impressions on last week alone on LinkedIn. So I don't know if everybody's in the industry or not, or they just turn into hear the humor of friends talking. Don't know.
That was my relatives that are going to CES, and I told them to watch the show. So
yeah,
sorry
there you
about
go.
that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Grandpa Greg. Thanks.
So Yamaha's got this new little console. You guys probably all know about. It's a DM3. It's little. It's like the size of your laptop. It's got 16 input. It's got 16 inputs technically. 8 of them are on the face, and 8 of them. 8 of them are. It's 2 layers. It's 1 through 8, and then 9 through 16. It's got 6 auxes, aux mix buses, whatever you want to call them, and 2 matrices. So we bought like 4 or 5 of them to use for breakout rooms, and I really wanted to wait till the Dugan was released, but I haven't gotten any word when that's going to happen yet. I have heard that it will be a firmware upgrade, because if we're going to put 4 of them in 4 rooms with no operators, I need to be able to set them up ahead of time with Dugans and let them be autopilot. I've done it with the TF a couple of times, and it worked actually scary. It worked oddly well, and it really kind of scared me at first, but everybody did fine. They turned their mics on and off their little belt packs, and the built-in Dugan did its thing, and it worked perfectly. So anyway, here was the catch. Go ahead.
Okay. I just want to say what a Dugan does is it's an automatic device that turns the microphone on for a speaker, and then when he finishes speaking, it shuts it off. That's basically what a Dugan does.
It sort of settles it down a little bit, but yeah. Okay. So it's really easy to use. It's pretty sensible. All of us will figure it out in like 5 minutes. But here was what we were noodling with today. So Gary had one. Gary McCallion, whom some of you know, had the new one that has Dante in his shop today. And I went down there, and he had an Axient mic. Now, Axients have Dante on them. So wouldn't you think that anything with Dante in it as an outboard piece of gear would plug right in to the DM3 and show up in the menu so that you can assign it to a channel and off you go, just like most Dante stuff with the Yamaha QLs and CLs. Well, we farted around with this thing for hours with a switch, without a switch. We did everything humanly possible, and the microphone would not show up in the console. So we called Yamaha and said, what is the deal? Why would you do this? And they said, oh, it's actually really simple. The only way you can do that is with Dante controller. So, word to the wise, don't get lost trying to plug outboard gear into a DM3 if you happen to have to do it, unless you have Dante controller, because that's the only way it'll work.
Well, I wonder if that's something they'll fix with firmware again, but that's weird. So are you saying if you connect a Rio or a TO to it, you also have to use Dante controller?
No, it's designed to see the Rio and the TO, and on the screen where you do the Dante connection, it says Rio or it says TO, and you touch one of them and it will go, okay, and there it is. But that's it. Nothing else shows up on that screen.
So are you saying that no other let's see, not any non-Yamaha products? Because there's a lot of Dante products these
there
days.
is, and I'm surprised.
What about DVS? Does DVS show up?
Well, what he said was, if it's an outboard piece of gear, that he didn't say when he names, he just said, oh, use Dante controller, your outboard piece of gear, your Axient will show up there, and that's where you make the patch. Then when you go in the console, see, what we did is we couldn't find the Axient on there, but we went to the channel strip and we assigned Dante 1 to input 1, and it did the assignment, but it said flashed a little yellow light and said no connection made. So it sensed.
Well, remember, in Yamaha world, there's 2 patches to do. You've got a patch from the channel to Dante, and then from Dante you have to patch the device, or from the device or whatever.
It knows there's something out there, but it does not see the device. So
okay, that makes sense. But when you did it, did you do it with Dante controller and it worked or not?
No, well, I couldn't stay. I had to get out of there. So it's
too late. It was too late. Yeah.
Well, so Gary called me when I was driving in the car, and he goes, "Oh, here's the deal," and I tried it and it worked. So.
Okay, so with Dante controller,
Oh, that's cool.
which takes it away from breakout room kind of material. Other than if you, and I guess if you patch it in advance, can you patch it in advance and hope that it works?
I don't know, but breakout rooms, those guys are pretty much, zipper heads.
Brainless, yeah.
So,
No,
as far as I'm concerned, you put it, I built a template for our breakout rooms. So it's like 4 mics, 2 handhelds, 2 lavs, couple playback machines, and everything is routed. And there's basic EQ in there. And basically I set up the breakout room. I give it a EQ shot, and they're all matching speakers with 8 pair snakes. And then I go through and I load them into consoles, and they make everything work. And then I'm gone and I don't pay attention anymore. And it just sort of works. And we have 1 or 2 guys that run around and babysit.
But are you coming into the console, Dante, or
no? I said, Mike, don't get the ones with Dante, because this is it'll just be another failure point for all these clowns.
Yeah, for the kids that don't understand what's happening there.
But I do want Dugan, because that's what's going to make it be really smooth.
Well, for sure. Well, the Dante is like you have to pay extra to get the Dante model,
it's like
right?
$300. Yeah.
Oh, that's all? Wow, that's amazing.
It's not much.
And how much? But I'm guessing it only gives you like 32 channels of Dante.
32 by 32, I think.
Yeah.
Which is the Q1 chip, right?
Yeah,
the Q1 chip is 32.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you something. Who's going to NAMM it's between the 25th and the 28th down in Anaheim? And Yamaha is going to probably have a huge booth there. I'm sure you're going to be able to.
They got me. They got me my pass, so I'm gonna go and tell them they need to make a larger DM7, more fader DM7.
Yeah.
Right.
And tell them to put Dugan on the
mixer
DM3 as soon as possible.
the mixer is amazing. I mean, the DM7 just blew my mind with how powerful it is. But
so it doesn't have silk on it, does it? Not that I'll ever need that. I mean, you might, because with Barry and them, but. I don't think. I think it sounded kind of interesting. I enjoyed playing with it, but it's not something I'd ever use in a corporate world.
That's a function of the preamps, and that's the Ravage preamps. That
it makes it sound like an analog preamp.
Sure. Sound schmound. It's a matter of what blend you have, not the quality of the sound. The sound quality could.
Speaking of good sound, our friend Mike Abbott won an Emmy.
So did Alan Richardson.
Really?
I saw Alan Richardson.
Eric
he came over to me the other night.
And Matt Hare.
God, I haven't seen Mike in a long time. Wow. That's great.
They
got
won an Emmy for the
of a
John
special
Farewell
event,
from
something.
Dodger Stadium tour.
Wow.
Right.
Isn't that cool?
Well, what I was wondering was, so who got the Emmys, Jan? Do you know?
Mike Abbott got one, Eric Schilling got one, Alan Richardson got one, and Matt Hare got one. So Matt Hare
what's
front
Matt
of house. He does the front of house. Alan Richardson was the monitor mixer. Eric Schilling was the music mixer, and Mike Abbott was the A1.
Right.
And they worked for Claire. They did Claire. It was a Claire thing.
Right.
So
I saw
really cool.
Alan. This is the first time I saw Alan since probably 1990 something.
We got some famous friends.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
I was hoping to see your name there, Bruce.
So what I want to know is, Christopher C., where are you, and what's your thing? I haven't seen you before.
I'm in Pacific Palisades, and I've been working with Jan over the years. So I've got this new gear behind me, and I'm more of a musician, more front of house, basically kind of point source and simplistic sound. But I've been mentally married to Meyer Sound since about 1992. When they had they had those MS500s, and then after the MS500, if you remember that, it was kind of this big square cabinet that was a full range point source, self-powered, and they had it at the NAMM show, and they had Simmons drums connected to it, and it was just mind-blowing. So I got a hold of Meyer after that, and then they were like, well, we don't have any. That 500's discontinued. It's the MTS 4As. Or MTS 4 at that time wasn't even the 4A. They hadn't redone the controller yet. So that's kind of when I just decided to dive into Meyer, because I owned other gear and it just kept blowing up. I'm a drummer, and the transients back in the day were just too much for most gear. They would just pop, and that would be the end of it. And but Meyer never popped.
So those speakers on the stick behind you, is that your headphones?
Yeah, so these are those are Ultra X40s up on top, and 900 LFCs down on the bottom.
Wow.
They look great. Where'd you get them from?
There's this guy in Vegas.
This guy.
He's a really nice guy. But
so
yeah.
do you have like a little sound company, or is this just for your personal use?
For the moment, that's a potential objective. I was an expatriate, so just for example, the Meyers. When I bought my first set of Meyers, I bought them directly from Meyer because I was in Madagascar, and there was no Meyer dealer in Madagascar. Big surprise back in the 90s. So they were like, "Look, we've got some B stock." And I said, "Great, I'll take them." So I got a great deal from Meyer, and they just shipped them down there. But so I'm, been getting my skill set back up on drums. That's kind of, I've met that objective, and I've got this new sound gear, and I've got a couple of different bands, and I'm going to be recording an album with a friend of mine. And yeah, I mean, one of the things I've got quite a few good connections to musicians that are just playing in small groups in Los Angeles. So I may end up doing a little bit of sound. And by the way, that leads me to my first question. I've got these beauties behind me. I did a little research on the internet. There's a company in Romania, this is excluding Anvil, and there's a company in Germany that announced, they have cases for these things, but what can people tell me about where to get cases for these boys?
I can tell you there are thousands of case companies these days.
There is a really good case company, and there's a really good case company right in your backyard called Jan
SKB?
Well, Jan L, if you want a serious road case, Jan L is the way to go.
Okay.
And Muffy is a good person. If you need that, send me an email and I'll send you Muffy's contact. They might have some, they build really spectacular road cases. And then of course
there are lots of companies. There's a lot of companies that make spectacular cases. So
when you buy a road case, you want to buy it as local as possible, because to avoid the shipping costs. And that's all there is to it with that.
My favorite, there's a company called Fiasco Cases that's also in Southern California, and there's a company in Fullerton called Get Off My Case, and that's my favorite case companies. Get Off My Case. Well, not my favorite, but one of my favorite case companies. But then there's another guy called Bob Blackhurst who has a company called Stage Gear, and he's in, where is he, Anaheim?
Yeah, Anaheim area. He's great.
Yeah, he's a genius with cases.
Yeah.
And he really, really great cases. And, whatever you want, sort of. I mean, case companies are an interesting breed, because there are case companies that just make standard cases, and there's case companies that make custom cases, and there's everything in between. SKB is a company that just makes their case. They only make what they make, and they're all
they just make
imported.
It's all
they're imported,
injection molded, roto,
right? And good stuff, and they're based right in Orange, but they're really nice and everything. But they're not going to make you a custom case, I'm pretty sure. So if what they make is suits your application, that's great. But Get Off My Case and Stage Gear and Fiasco, and there's tons of other case companies around. Then they're all trying to outdo the other one. You know what I mean?
Mention Ken Newman's name for a discount. That's it.
At Get Off My Case, yeah. Ask them for Newman handles at Get Off My Case, and they'll laugh at you.
Now, speaking of Kenny Newman and the special, this goes for David and Kenny and maybe some other people in the room. Tony Orlando will tie a ribbon around his career after 60 years, and his final concert is March 22nd in no other place than the Mohegan Sun. And I know both David and Kenny have worked with Tony and both Mohegan Sun. That's right.
Is Don still alive?
I don't think he's had Dawn for a long time. Dawn, Tony Orlando and Dawn. Knock 3 times on my ceiling, whatever that is.
Oh,
now didn't you mix Tony Orlando?
Yeah.
Kenny?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Holy smokes.
Ken, didn't you mix Tony
I
Orlando?
did it for a week until I got fired. It was a really cool firing. It was the best firing ever.
Where did you do them?
Desert Inn in Vegas.
Desert Inn.
He really liked the sound, but he didn't like dealing with me.
Didn't you get a gig off of that? Yeah, what was the local guy's name? I forgot his name right now, but you know who he is. He's the singer in Las Vegas.
Clint Holmes. No, Clint Holmes.
Clint Holmes.
No, but no, there was a whole story. I don't want to bore you with the story, but let's just say that when I got fired from Tony Orlando, it was a big deal. Tony Orlando was very upset, and he was like, "This effing a-hole that worked for me. He was such an a-hole, and he made such a fool out of himself." Or so I heard. I wasn't there, but I heard that that he made a fool out of himself yelling about me in public, and I was like, that's like crazy. Who does that? Anyway, so he complained about me in public for that evening when he let me go, and then months later, I'm working for Clint Holmes at Caesar's Palace, back when Caesar's Palace was Circus Maximus, the previous showroom, not the current one, and anyway, Tony Orlando had a night off, so he came to see the show, and he didn't know I was doing the sound. But after the show, he went backstage and said to Clint, "Man, who was doing your sound? It was fantastic." And he's like, "Well, Ken Newman was doing my sound." He's like, and the story goes that he turned to his road manager and said, "The Ken Newman?" And the road manager said, "Yes, boss, the Ken Newman." And this was the punchline that I was like shocked at. He said to Clint, "Clint, you tell Ken Newman he's got the best sounding show in town." And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing, considering that months earlier he was like raving and ranting and making a fool out of himself about what an a-hole I was.
Well, you can still being an a-hole and making good sound are two different things. I want you to know right now.
Well, I put them together all the time. I want you to know that's one and the same for me.
Like one validates the other.
Yeah, right.
We're not sure which way it goes, though.
Hey, there's Ken Porter.
Greg, we're not talking about you right now. I just want you to know, don't take it personal.
We're only talking about me.
Jan, did you ever know Jimmy Fox?
No, and even if I did, I wouldn't admit it, so it's all right. No.
Oh, okay.
Who is Jimmy Fox?
Oh, he was back. Let's see. When I was doing, oh man, when the Hilton was the Hilton, and Dancing Waters was in the showroom, and Captain and Tennille.
Jim Fox, who did sound for
Captain and
for Liberace.
Well, for Liberace, yes.
Jim Fox did. Wait, is that who he did sound for?
Yep.
Yeah,
we worked together on
hearing his name
on many shows, and he was such a great guy. And Jeff Rittinger was the stage manager for Liberace. In fact, he came in with Liberace as the Dancing Waters guy. And I was doing some shows in Vegas and went to have dinner with Jeff Rittinger. And, you know, we went over to the show, of course, and got to see the show. And that's where I met Jimmy Fox. And then we did a bunch of shows together because he's just a great guy. And there was another guy that worked at Caesars all the time, Rogers or something.
Oh, well, you're talking about Dave Rogers.
Dave Rogers.
Yes, the head sound guy at Caesars.
Right. Great guy, too.
Might not have been a good sound guy, but he was a great guy. Yeah,
he was a good guy. Yeah.
But he was really funny. He had.
Yeah, Ken. No, come on. Don't get shy. Don't get shy on us now, really.
My Dave Rogers story is that I only worked with him once. Probably you guys, like David Dansky, has probably worked with him many times, but I didn't know Dave very well, and I just was there mixing, being hired by Clint Holmes to mix Clint Holmes' show. So Dave's like, "Oh, you got to come see my echo chamber downstairs. It's really cool. It's the original echo chamber from blah blah, from a long time ago or something." And so you go downstairs underneath the stage and through some long hallways and stuff, and finally get to this room, and it's just a not rectangular room, and it was all cinder block everywhere, and it's very live. You could tell right away it was very live. So that was his echo chamber. He had a speaker on one end and a microphone on the other. And what's he do? Pulls out a starter pistol and fires it. And I mean, in a room like that, that was really shocking. So that was just his sense of humor, and just to shock the kid that came in to mix some act.
So I have a great story for you with, Mark Swift, right? Yeah,
who works at
Swifty, they call him
Mark
Swifty.
yeah.
Swift, yeah.
Oh, I love Mark.
Donnie Osmond is his gig these days.
Yeah, so I was at the Westgate. I was doing the papers and panels for CES for a bunch of years, and we were having a boring afternoon one afternoon. He goes, "So you have some history here, don't you?" And I says, "Yeah." It goes back to kind of Liberace, and he says, "Did you ever see Elvis's Reverb?" And I'm like, "No." And he says, "Come on, we're going to do some climbing." Because I had said to him, "Wasn't there another theater where they had big follies and all this kind of shit going on?" And he says, "Yes." He says, "Come on, we're going upstairs. I'm going to show you where the other theater was." So the first thing we did is, we climbed through the rafters and through these trap doors and all this kind of crap. And we're up over the top of Benihana's. And he says, "Here's the other theater." And I could see the fly and everything. And I'm like, "Holy cow, what's below us?" And he says, "Did you ever notice how Benihana's has all those weird levels and you go out up and down all these stairs?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "That's the theater. They really didn't change it too much. They just made it into Benihana's." And I'm like, "No shit." So that's where the other theater is, right? So then we climbed back over, heading over to Elvis's showroom. And he walks up to this pipe, and it's like a 10-inch pipe, maybe 8 inches, maybe. It's been a few years, right? And it's like 100 feet long, and it goes from one side of the theater to the other side of the theater. And we go walking down to the one end of the pipe, and it's got a plate welded on the end with like what looked like an old 58 sort of welded into the end of the pipe. And at the other end of the pipe with this archaic 8-inch speaker. And I said, "No." I said, "Did he feed this speaker out of one of the auxes of the console?" And he goes, "Yes." And the sound goes down through the pipe, 100-foot long galvanized pipe, picks it up on the microphone at the other end and brings it into a channel. And he said that was one of Elvis's reverbs. And I'm like, "Get out of here." And it's still there. It's still there.
It's still there. I'll have to, because that's where I work pretty regularly, is the Westgate.
Yeah.
So I'll have to ask about that.
Yeah. Well, I saw it myself, but now it was probably, let's see, probably 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. But Swifty knows exactly where it is. Took him 2 minutes to get me up there. It was so funny.
That's great.
Isn't that wonderful?
Kids and their echo chambers,
Well, you're going to have to tell us, Kenny, if it's still there next week. You're going to have to tell us.
Well, no, next time I go there, which would be a couple months from now.
Oh, he's off now?
And not till the middle of February.
Okay.
So
well,
in the old days with my band in the 70s, my two echo machines were a Roland 201 with the cartridges, which you guys probably remember, with a dial on the front. And then I had a decoder 4-track, and I used to feed one channel of the console into the decoder, and I would ping pong it between the heads, and I'd return the different heads into the console. So I had 4 returns. So depending on the delay I wanted, I would just bring up those faders from the heads on the decoder. 4-track, it's a 10-inch 4-track recorder, and I'd go through like a 10-inch reel a week because we were doing shows every night, and that was my echo. It was great, man. It worked great. And then they came out with a lexicon. They came out with all this cool stuff, and I couldn't afford any of that shit. So my Roland Space Echo and my decoder 4-track, that was my effects.
Speaking of Space Echo and sound, hey, Greg, did you have anything to do with the launching of the Peregrine spacecraft?
Absolutely not.
Oh, bummer. Sorry about that.
I mean, I saw it, but no. And also, speaking of all that space launches, my Artemis 2, the entire Artemis program is pushed back 9 months to a year. So the launch
because of what happened?
Artemis 2 launch, it was supposed to happen in late April or May. Yeah, it's going to be next year.
So just so those people don't know, if I remember, Greg mixes the sound of the rockets for the Smithsonian. Is that correct?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
So it's a shame about what just happened. That they're not going to be able to land on the moon.
Oh yeah.
So what just happened? What happened?
Well, it was a rocket that was
company. They had a propellant leak after launch.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah.
Now they can't, so they're going to get it into orbit and they're going to repurpose it. It's a shame. Also, it was a multifaceted, mission, because they also had DNA from like 3 presidents, Gene Roddenberry, all sorts of stuff. So halfway to the moon, they are going to release the DNA.
Oh yeah, they were
Oh
going to
yeah,
do
there
a
was a
moon
big to do.
burial.
The Navajo Indians didn't want that happening because the moon is spiritual for them, and they were going to do a burial in space of this DNA of these
Right.
people. And so the American Indians were absolutely against that. But by the way, it wasn't a little company that did it. It was Boeing and Lockheed, and Boeing has not been having much luck lately with
No.
with them. I mean, it is scary to think when you see those pictures of that Max 9, I think it's a Max 9 with the, I mean, just imagine what it must have been like to be on that plane when you see a section of the fuselage pop away. You know,
And it was
I mean,
so
it's a
the plane
miracle.
was sold out, and it was except for 2 seats, and they were the 2 seats next to the door plug that blew out. So how
I mean,
fortuitous
that is
is
nuts.
that? You know, the
That
coolest
was
thing I thought
lucky.
about the entire thing is that they found an iPhone that got sucked out.
Yeah,
On the
16,000
ground.
feet. Yeah.
So didn't the door land in somebody's backyard or something? Can you
Yep.
imagine that?
Yeah, physics teacher.
Portland.
Yeah, did you see him on the
Oh.
news? Yeah, yeah.
No, I just heard about it. I was like, oh my God, thank God it didn't
Yeah.
hit anybody or go through somebody's house, because it would have kept right on going, you know?
Well, they're saying
Oh,
if
Yeah,
it
yeah.
16,000
that had
feet.
happened at cruising altitude, the plane would have disintegrated. The only reason
Absolutely.
it didn't die is because they
Exactly.
were only at 16,000 feet.
That
And they
reminds me
knew
of
they had a
that.
possible problem, so they weren't using this plane to fly from, to Hawaii over the sea, and yet they kept the plane up in the air. Anyway, that's so irresponsible.
Did you
Is that
remember
right?
the,
I had not heard that, Jan. So what did they not know what the problem was or something? Why would
They
they fly a
they
plane?
had decompression warning, slight pressure sensor warning for like 3 or 4 flights, and so they said, all right, well, it can only go overland, because once you get out over the ocean, you got pressurization problems. You're pretty much screwed. That's the reason why, people go over Alaska to go to Asia, rather than going from, you go LA direct to Bangkok or to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
They don't do that. That's an Amelia Earhart move,
Well, that could have been a flight that Kurt could have been on, because it's,
Yeah.
it was out of Portland going to, where it was going to
Yeah, it was going
California.
to Ontario. Yeah.
Yeah.
California.
So Kurt, I'm
yeah.
glad you weren't on that plane.
Yeah, I fly Alaska all the time.
and remember that Hawaiian Air flight? That was also a Boeing 737 where they lost part of the roof. I remember
Yeah.
like the whole top of the plane came off and they were able to land. And I was flying the next day and the captain was out in front in his 737. And I said, oh, Captain, nice to meet you, And
Is this a convertible?
yeah, no, I said, yeah, it's a really nice day. I hope we're going to fly with the top down. And
Yeah. It's one of those sightseeing. It's like a sightseeing bus, only it's a plane,
he
the open deck.
He did not appreciate that joke at all.
Yeah. But I got to tell you, though, stretching aircraft models, no matter whoever the manufacturer is, I mean, you inherently are bending the laws of physics. And, at some point, it's going to be a step too far. But, it's, cost effective for the businesses. So,
Yeah. Well, speaking of stepping too far about physics, did you hear that Starbucks is now going to let you bring your own cup?
That's it. That's it. I'm out of here. I'm done. See ya.
Oh, sorry, he left. I was just about to talk about concert grosses. I mean, it's pretty amazing. The top 3, the top 3 cities, New York, Las Vegas, and LA, not necessarily in that order. New York concert market did 912 million. Billy Joel's Residence alone brought in 33 million. Beyonce's tour was also big. Metallica did 20.8 million, and Drake 32 million. And then in Los Angeles, Taylor Swift, she did over, I guess, like 250 million worldwide. They didn't say exactly how much she did, but Beyonce did over 171 $171 million, and it's amazing. Her total tour grossed 45. Wow, I can't even keep the numbers up there. So $450 million. This is crazy. Coldplay did 19 million in LA. RBD did 21.47. Luis Miguel did 3.13 million, and Carol G did 2 shows and earned $25.44 million. And that's in Los Angeles. And that's crazy. And then you go into Las Vegas, and then U2, because they were in the Sphere, they generated $109 million. $109 million. And
has anybody seen that show yet? How does it sound with that band?
Minus it was 120 million minus the 120 milliseconds of delay that's in the Sphere.
Yeah.
So the money takes longer to get to the bank.
Yeah.
Pink did 9 million in Las Vegas. So I mean, there's a lot. Drake did 4.1 million, and Taylor Swift, God knows what she made in that market. So
yeah.
Well, they got to make money someplace. They can't sell albums anymore.
Well,
crazy.
But if you look at Front of House magazine, they have a listing of all the sound companies who did the top 20 grossing tours in 2023. All but 4 of them, so 16 of them were Claire Associates. Okay, either D&B or companies that Claire owns. So they got 16 of the 20, and Meyer had 2 of the others, and then I forget the other 2 stragglers, but yeah. So that goes to show you, talking about the Borg, but they're great. I mean, Claire is just amazing what they've turned into. So they're just amazing.
You're 100% correct. They become it's if you, depending on whether you're their competitor or not, whether or not they're amazing. By the way, Kurt might not think Claire is so amazing.
Speaking of Claire and the Mafia thing, has anybody looked up?
There's Ken Porter. There you go. The winner of something. What'd you win? Sound Company of the Year.
Whatever. I'm telling one nothing. Anyway, EEEP, which is the entertainment anyway, production, whatever there. But basically what it is Pennsylvania is paying people to come to use Pennsylvania companies and to do rehearsals there, and they'll put them up to $800,000 toward their production costs.
What, in Rockleditz or anywhere in Pennsylvania?
Correct.
Yeah.
Rockleditz is the only place that's on the list.
Yeah, wow, what a coincidence. They have really, they have really become the Borg for sure. But by the way, that EEP, that sounds like a lyric from Dua Lipa. That's by the way. So yeah, it's crazy.
It's really transformed sound image and their buying power. It's really cool. It's going to see how sound image, what autonomy that they still retain throughout the years. So
Claire does the big, they do Taylor Swift, right?
Yeah, they do Taylor Swift. They did Beyonce. Well, D&B did both of those. Yeah, go to FOH magazine online. You'll see the whole list.
Both of those were 8-day, and that's what the reason they bought 8-day, to get those accounts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. 8-day. Yeah, that's right. It's not it's D&B and 8-day. Yep.
That's right. We had Jack on the show, and he was very opinionated, which I like about him. I'll try to get him back on now, but now that he's a superstar, who knows, but it was great. But no, I was saying that Taylor Swift has become like, an entity unto herself, that everybody is trying to just live off of her coattails, and so now, of course, the New York Times wrote an article, they had an opinion piece that she's probably gay, Why
yeah,
they
who
would write
cares?
that? Isn't that nuts?
But
And then, of
it's
course,
going to
the
be
Swifties.
interesting to see how the Stones tour does this year.
Yeah.
'Cause-
By the way, just an FYI, because of that, I canceled my New York Times subscription. I
Yeah.
just want you to know that I canceled my subscription.
New York Times got a lot of backlash over that.
Oh yeah, and then that Emmy award. I don't know, although Mike won the Emmy, over there, those guys won the Emmy. I mean, that guy was way out of line in what he did with that bad joke, and that, But who ever heard of that guy? Nobody. I mean,
he's
everybody.
big.
The
He's big
scuttlebutt
on-
is that he was hired 10 days
of course.
before showtime.
They
Yeah,
couldn't
but
find
the whole
anybody. No
thing is
major
those-
name wanted to do the show.
He's from
Not
here. And
one
he sells
major
out-
name.
So,
He sells out stadiums.
yeah, he sells out stadiums. I mean,
I'm
you
down.
know, 10 days is 30 days to 10 days with anything except for the Academy Awards. That's what you get, and that's coming from people like Billy Crystal. People have already done it, and they're saying it's a tough gig, and unless actually over the years the people in the crowd hated him, but Gervais was probably the best Golden Globes
Oh, he's so funny.
presenter,
Totally agree.
It was weird that
People's-
they did it in the Hilton ballroom. Like there's no trim height, there's no elevation. I
Right.
saw a couple things like any wide shots or distant shots look terrible. It just looked
Yeah.
like a crappy ballroom somewhere.
They've always done it in the Hilton Ballroom.
yeah.
it's-
I've
it's
done
always
so
been
many
there, yeah.
shows over there. Amazing, The Beverly Hilton. I've done so many shows. It's such a hard load in. You got to go through the kitchen. And that's probably why Bruce doesn't want to do any more shows like that. I can't blame him.
That late 80s, early 90s in there for a bunch
Actually, the Wiesenthal dinner was tonight that I was supposed to do, and they didn't hire who I wanted to hire they took the whole PA and all the drapes out of that room last week so that the Golden Globes could put in all their stuff. So the Wiesenthal group, production people called me and said, "Will you do the show? And who should we get to do sound?" And I said, "I can take care of all that." And then they didn't want to pay the price, so I backed out of it. And so it's tonight. So
I did one of the first Wiesenthal shows when they opened the Tolerance Center. And
Really?
they had Bill, and yeah. And I did it in that room and Bill Clinton was there. And what a nightmare that was.
the
Doing
theater,
all that show. What?
their theater in the museum, the theater there.
No. This was at the Beverly Hilton. It
Oh,
was
the
at the
Beverly
Beverly Hilton. I'm pretty and of course, that room is so hard to work in, and then you got
It's
a
tough.
president in that room, and then all of a sudden you gotta stop doing what you're doing and let the Secret Service in
Oh,
there
the
and sweep
dogs and
room.
everything. Yeah.
Oh my God,
Well, during
But
COVID,
I'm
during COVID, we did the Wiesenthal fundraisers in the theater in the Wiesenthal Museum, and we had no audience. We were just bringing people in on different days and standing them at the lectern and letting them do their speeches. And then they assembled the videotape afterwards and sent it out to everybody. But yeah.
Yep. So anyway, let's see. I got some other things that I wanted to talk about, but I love what we were talking about. The
Yeah.
last thing I want to say, and then I'll let everybody run rampant, is about the streaming services. I just found out that Amazon Prime now wants to add commercials unless you pay another $3 a month. Which is nuts. And what I'm finding is that people, basically 24% of the streaming service users have canceled the service in the last 2 years. And people, what they're doing right now, just an FYI, is that people are taking a service on for a month, binge watching whatever they want, canceling the service, and then going to another service, binge watching, canceling, and recycling their subscriptions. The only one that seems to be doing well right now is Netflix.
You're going to see this weekend, the NFL, one of the biggest games of the year, which is Miami, and it's also going to be the coldest game of the year. Miami and Kansas City is only available on Peacock.
That's correct.
Okay,
Streaming
8
only.
o'clock game, and it's going to be, and So what's going to happen is Peacock is going to see a huge surge, and on Tuesday, everybody's going to be canceling. That's what I'm doing.
I heard that Peacock was free for like it's free with commercials.
I get Peacock free.
I don't think they're going to be giving this one away.
No, they're not.
On my Peacock,
You got to
sheet
go
said
for
it's
the
gonna be
full
on.
service.
I don't have to pay for it.
Yeah,
Well,
I think you could, I'm pretty sure about that because I believe I have free Peacock too, because I'm not paying for that. That's for sure.
Yeah, but
yeah, all I'm
you do the football game and then you hold it for 2 weeks and then you can watch it 24 hours a Daytona on Peacock.
right. There's a Southern gentleman if I have ever heard one.
Anyway, one last thing I want to say too, as well. I know I said that was the only, but I want to say R.I.P. Rest in peace to Tom Smothers. Man, he died from cancer at 86. What a funny guy he was, and I used to love watching his show when I was, he was way ahead of them. They were way ahead of the crowd of political satire in those days, and he did it in a brilliant way. So I just wanted to say, anybody work with him ever? Anybody work with the Smothers brothers in this room? No? Oh, well, that's it. So, okay. Everything you've heard today is an opinion. So do your own research. And now we'll just open up the room to anybody who has anything they want to say. Ken Porter, I know you're there somewhere. I know you're cooking dinner, but the
He's cooking.
reality is I know you always have some insightful thoughts that you give us to stimulate our brains. So lay it on us.
I haven't got anything today. I'm tapped out today.
Tapped out. Oh, well, that's it.
Well, there was an
Anyway.
interesting article about people cord cutting. So historically, people were spending quite a bit of month on a large bouquet of channels that they were never looking at. And essentially, the trend seems to be that people are moving away from wanting to spend 100, 200 or more a month for these huge bouquets of channels that they're not watching. And that content creation now is going to be much more merit-based than it previously was. These studios didn't really have to worry. They were just getting flooded with money and they would produce whatever content they kind of wanted to. But now the relationship between content and revenue is highly correlated, and people are basically saying, no, I don't want to spend, a whole bunch of money with a local provider to get channels that I'm not watching. I'm just going to choose these very narrow providers and buy, maybe buy a film, a one-off kind of thing. So that's going to change the complexion of television production for sure.
But here's the thing: is that the streaming services are merging. Okay. What is it? I put out a thing. Max is going to merge with somebody.
Disney.
Hulu. With Disney. Yeah. All of a sudden.
Yeah, they're all merging. Apple's gonna, Apple could buy Disney if he want. Apple could actually buy whatever they want. They can buy whatever streaming service they want. They just won one of the an Emmy with that Who Killed Flower Moon. Which Apple is doing really well in the streaming business and streaming world. I happen to cancel my Apple thing after I binge watch Ted Lasso, but the reality is that there's some good shows on there.
Yeah, right. I just I looked at Apple TV and what they had, and it just my younger brother is staunch Apple TV, and he has Apple TV and Netflix. Well, I'm not that way. I just do YouTube TV, and I have Prime because I use Prime for shopping, and I get the movies for free. I don't buy the streaming service. I buy Amazon, for what I use, and I get the streaming for free. And when the Picard series was on, I turned on Paramount. When the last Olympics was on, when Fred was doing sound for the Winter Olympics, I turned on, I turned on Peacock so I can hear his mixes, and then I canceled it. So
I only have one question. What were you wearing when you were watching these things? No, keep it brief.
Player's going to end up owning all of them anyway.
huh?
Player's going to end up owning all of them anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, Claire will end up all of it. Yeah, that's right. They'll finally go into the TV stream.
Boy,
That's why, and that's why I write off my streaming
Wouldn't that be
services.
crazy?
I write off my streaming services because it's really important that I know what's going on in the world as regards to the way, especially I need to hear the sound that they're producing, how they're doing it, what equipment they're using, all that, and you can't do it unless you listen and do it. So there you have it. What kind of equipment?
You're saying this so that when you get flagged by the IRS for doing that, you can refer to show number whatever it is.
190.
Yeah.
No, actually, actually, it is definitely a legitimate write-off because you can't. How do you know what to talk about to people in business if you're not keeping track of what's going on in the industry? And the industry basically now is really important. I mean, everything that's streamed has sound in it. Everything has lighting in it. Everything has video in it. And that's what we sell: sound, light, staging, and video. So
just the counter argument to that is for years, every news channel, or almost every news channel on cable TV, doesn't need that. They just say what they
You're
want
joking.
to say.
I need to see what kind of lavalier microphones that they're using right now. Are they using Lexicon? Are they using Sennheiser? Are they using Shure? What are they using? When I'm talking to my other clients, I want to say, well, look, if you want to, you want to be like the people on Fox, you need to use you need to use, this brand. That's all there is to it. You need to be doubled mic. That's it. You want to do it right, that's how you got to do it.
Wow.
So.
This time of year, this is, I have 2 relatives that are feeding me stuff from CES every year. The month of January, for almost a decade and a half, I would do, Comtex. It was the computer show. It would be CES, the computer show, and then NAMM, and then the Apple show. The entire month of January, it was all conferences. And, so, yeah, they've all merged just like the cable, right?
Well, everything's merging. The airlines are merging. It's all, Ken?
I just realized something talk about NAMM show. I was talking to Bill Sherman the other day. He was talking about all the stuff going on with Meyer, and that Meyer's doing an off-site thing at NAMM. Does everybody know about that or registered on that already?
Yeah, it's the evening of the 25th, and it's at the Grove in Anaheim. Doors open at 4:30. Demo starts at 5, and you can go on to Eventbrite and reserve your ticket there.
I thought it was 2 nights. One night was a 2-night thing. I thought he told me one was in another language.
Oh, that's possible. I'm going on the 25th. That's
Thursday night, right?
I think it's mostly Panther.
Yeah, no, it's Panther LFC 2100. It's kind of the same show that they did over at the East Side Church a couple of months ago.
What?
Yeah.
If you haven't heard it, you should go hear it. Believe me.
Well, he said he had some other new stuff or something they were going to talk about. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Something software wise.
Oh,
it's going to be interesting because NAMM's coming up. NAMM's coming up, and a lot of us are going to be. Well, I won't be there, unfortunately, but Kurt's going, right? And Ken Newman's going, and David Dansky, I think, is going. David Dansky right now is at CES, our man on the street. I would love to hear what he sees, or what's new and exciting on that. But Chris, are you going?
I'm going to go to NAMM, yeah, absolutely, and then I'll go to the Meyer thing afterwards.
And Ken, I think Ken Porter's going to be there as well. So a lot of people are going to NAMM. It's going to be a big show this year. I really wish I would be able to be there.
I've got a question for Kurt. on these end fire arrays, which seem counterintuitive, right? Putting one speaker in front of another, and they sum up. Have you noticed any difference flying an end fire as opposed to having it on the ground, or is it just the same?
I haven't flown the end fires because we never had that much space. In fact, we rarely ever do it because we almost never have enough space to set them up. They take a lot of depth.
I see what you're saying.
So we don't do it much. One of the reasons for like Meyer flying the end fires is you'll notice that they will slope down typically. And it's for steering. Not only does it give cardioid, but it also gives you beam steering. So that's one of the main reasons that they'll fly, 3 hangs of 3 or 5 or something. So, sloped configuration to steer the lobe down into the audience.
We do end fire on the floor a lot, and it works really well. The 3 boxes
takes up so much space.
It does take up a lot of room, but
we almost never have that kind of space or time, to tell you the truth.
Somewhere I saw one that they had a 20-inch truss or 24-inch truss hung upstage, downstage on each side, and had three hangs of 2 high of Meyer subs.
Yeah, I actually have a church design for an install that we're about to do that's that exact configuration. So if you have the space and the time to engineer it, it works. We just rarely have either of those.
Yeah, when I saw the when Meyer had their Panther LFC show here in Tampa, they did the 3 depths on the stage. Of course, there were there was no band or anything like that, so
you could never do that in a real situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Do it in a demo, but you can't actually do that with a band playing.
Yeah, exactly. That was my point. It sure did sound good though. Woo.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, we can minimize a lot of lobing in the room, and a big rectangle doing a corporate show would do an end fire on the floor. It helps a lot. You don't get any. You get a minimal power alley down the center.
No, we've done it with corporate. We're in Irvine, and we had a bunch of breakout rooms that were all adjacent, and we made sure that they designed them so that all the stages faced away from the air walls, and then we put a cardioid sub behind the stage in each room so that they, it'd fire through the stage, but all it was walk on music and the video content.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah, mostly for me too. Yeah.
Yeah. So we could put the sub center stage, upstage behind it, and it worked great. You didn't hear the other room doing their video playback while your guy's talking. And if we hadn't done that, it would have been a disaster.
And you don't see any subs on the floor for the audience or anything. It's great.
Yeah.
But you can't do that with a band.
No. As soon as they add.
I mean, in the Meyer demo at the East Side Church, I think the end fire was, if I'm not mistaken, it was like 6 elements deep. I mean, it was just ridiculous. You could hardly walk around on the stage. It was just subwoofers stacked and behind one another.
It's very interesting, but it just doesn't. It's not practical in most applications.
Yeah, that was my question, and I think even in 3D, and the idea of pointing the lobes down, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but low end is rarely steerable, depending on the room. You could steer it, but low end is low end. It's going to go wherever it wants. It's omnidirectional. So
yeah, but it's not when you're messing with time alignment and phasing, because you could steer it all over the place, but you got to have the room to put the subs and a lot of channels of amplifier too. Oh man.
Well, that's why it's so easy to do with Myers. It's all self-powered.
Self-powered, yeah.
You just need the processing,
So I got to tell you, we were doing some anime stuff with a full orchestra a couple times, and they had a couple of rock bands from Japan come over, and we did 4 dual 18s in front of 4 dual 18s. They were the JBL 4880s, if I remember rightly. It was a long time ago. 4 in front of 4. And I was doing monitors with a 5D, and I was like 8 feet in back of the subs, and my A2 and I could stand and have a conversation right there behind the subs during the show. It was so quiet, I couldn't believe it.
Oh yeah, especially if you're at 45-degree axis. You
Yeah.
can't even tell they're
Oh, it was unbelievable. And we try to nail it at about 70 hertz, maybe. That's our corner frequency, you know, and man, it just goes away back there. It's astounding.
Yeah.
Oh, you're back, Jan.
Yeah, his
And you're muted,
his
Jan.
energy went out.
Yeah.
Out there.
Are we still
Yeah,
recording?
we had a power failure here. Basically,
live
they've
and
been
recording?
they've been working on the power now for the last 2 weeks, and today they notified us that the power would go out. But I was hoping that we could make the whole meeting, so we didn't do it. But anyway, so all
We
I
missed
could
you.
say is, well, thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate everybody being here. And so I'll think what we'll do is we'll take it offline right now. Tina, why don't you give me back the hosting if you can, and then I will take us offline, or basically maybe you could do it. Just stop the recording, and that would be great. So that would be the end of that. And I wish everybody a very good week. It's listening. Just remember, we'll be back again next week for the 191st meeting of Thinking with Friends.
Cool.
And remember, everything you heard today is an opinion. So do your own research, and you make it happen. So make it happen, and we'll talk again real soon, next week for sure. All right, we're going to be in the meeting. We'll all stay in the meeting, and then those people who are not listening, you know, what the hell? What can I say? All right, stop live stream, and